Saludos and salutations, Broncos Country, and welcome back into another exciting episode of Broncos Talk. Ladies and gentlemen, Libre and I are so excited to talk about today's news. I'm pretty sure you guys have already heard it. It's been making the rounds ever since yesterday. JK Dobbins has officially signed with the Broncos on a one-year deal. So now the question is, have the Broncos won the offseason? Libre and I cannot wait to get in touch with you guys and just get your opinions and hear our thoughts about everything that's going on in Broncos country, all the buzz, and give our thoughts about the subject. Also, we have Broncos overtime ready to come to you guys. So make sure that you're cold, that your food is cold, your food is warm. You figure that after I say it so many times, I'd get it right. But since I don't write it down because I want to try to remember everything off the top of my head, because I don't want nothing to be scripted, and I still manage to goof it up. But I promise you one day I'll get it right. Make sure your food is warm, your beer is cold, and that you're comfortable as hell because you do not want to miss a single second of today's show. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, get ready because here we go.
Broncos talk, let's rock, feel the energy rise. From the microphone to the fans reaching the skies. Every episode a thrill and surprise. For the love of the game, we harmonize.
And welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ron Diaz, and joining me to my left or right, depending on which direction you are watching, is my co-host, Bronco Libre. Libre, how you doing tonight, my brother?
What's happening? How's it going, Broncos Country? What an exciting day here in Broncos Country with all the news that's just coming out, and I can't wait to talk about it. Let's go.
What's the temperature in Denver today, Libre?
Today, believe it or not, today is the exact temperature of what the number of days are out from the Broncos season kicking off. 88 degrees.
You're
R.I.P.
kidding.
DT. No,
We hit
not
like
at all.
93, I believe, here today. It is hot
Dang.
in Chicago, man. I miss the cold. I miss my snow. There's just something about hot weather, man, that just doesn't want to make me go outside, you know.
Right. That's another thing for me too, because us being bigger guys, like the heat just sucks, man. I just hate it so much. When some people talk to me about what's your favorite season, and I'm always saying it's football season. That's the only season that's right, is that is football season, and that's all it is. But really, when it comes down to it, fall is my favorite season of all time. You know, just because yes, it aligns with football season, it does all that, but it's just because the weather is starting to cool down again. It feels just comfortable. What I love about here in Denver is like it could be 45, 50 degrees outside, and we're still out there wearing shorts, and that's what I love about it.
Us here in Chicago, man, there's just something about the weather that keeps us feeling and looking crazy as all hell. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. If this is your first time, welcome. If not, welcome back. Before we get started with today's show, just like we do with every single show, we got to get a couple of things out of the way before we get to the topic of said show. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, we'd like to start off by asking you to please show your support for us here on the Orange and Blue Network. Subscribe, share, comment, and like on any and all the shows you see here live on the Orange and Blue Network. Also, please subscribe to our sister station, MHRT Network, because we are live streaming on both channels at the same time. So please subscribe, share, comment, and like on this show there and all the other shows that MHRT Network has to offer. For those of you on the audio podcast that are listening to us after the fact, please, 5-star reviews are always appreciated. Send us a screenshot so Libre and I can give you thanks live here on the air. Our screen names are down there at the bottom, our Twitter handles, I should say. Mine is at 6'10" Mexican. Bronco Libre is Bronco Libre 5280. We also like to thank our well, we like all our subscribers, our sponsor of today's show, which, of course, as always, is Dubby. Now, you guys might be asking yourself, if you've never heard of Dubby, what exactly Dubby is. So, ladies and
TikTok
gentlemen,
fam.
let me be the first one to tell you guys about Dubby. Basically, it was formulated to give you focus and energy with no jitters or crash. Their formula contains vitamins, amino acids, and nootropics, including the new patented neurofactor formula. Basically, it's no calories, no sugar, no maltodextrin, no fillers, and no artificial colors. Ladies and gentlemen, as we like to say here on Broncos Talk, it is all the good without all the bad. And to show you guys how awesome Johnny and the guys over in the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast, which you guys can watch every single Tuesday here on the networks, they want to give you guys the code NRWOB10 to get your 10% off discount at checkout. Again, that code is NRWOB10 to get your 10% off at checkout. Shout out to the guys over at Nothing Rhymes With for the discount, and of course to Dubby for being today's sponsor. Also, we also like to shout out to all of the subscribers and people watching us all over the net, especially our good friends over on Broncos World. And we also like to give you guys an update on all the show schedules going forward for the year. So just so you guys know, on Monday and Fridays, you can catch the Blitz at 11 a.m. Broncos Bros will be coming to you guys very, very soon. Mondays at 6 p.m. The Nothing Rhymes With guys, of course, Tuesdays at 7. The Broncos Talk Wednesdays at 6. Viva Los Broncos Fridays at 6 p.m. And then any breaking news, you guys will automatically get updated as long as you hit that notification button so you don't miss it for the Fresh Squeeze show. Also, every game day, 1 hour before kickoff, is the Get Bucked pregame show. And then every game day after the game's over, whether we win or lose, is the Buck Your Feelings podcast or podcast show. So please make sure your live notification button is on so that way you get that notification when these shows go live so you don't miss a single minute or second of all the great Broncos content we have here available for you guys on the networks. And I think I got everything.
Whew, man, it's already Wednesday. I'm tired just because of you just talking and talking and talking. But no, I'm just kidding. I love that you do it because I couldn't do it the way that you do it.
Well, you know, I don't know if Johnny watches the show, but he hasn't complained yet, so I'm doing something right.
Right? He hasn't said anything to you, so that's a good thing.
Except he's figuratively fired me like 5 times already.
Well, it's because of the stuff that you said. That's why you need to watch it. I have to fight for you every time he tells me he fires you.
I have not mentioned the Thunder in almost a week or two. So
yeah, you're gonna get fired again, and the finals isn't even over yet.
Even those Broncos is gone. But ladies and gentlemen, we already got some people in the chat. Let's say hi to some of them. Paul Schaefer saying championship. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Paul Schaefer, I salute
Schaefer,
you, brother.
let's go.
Thank you so much for being here. And I couldn't agree more. It is championship field season here in Broncos Country. Shai Vargas saying, hey, Libre.
Shai, what's happening, brother?
I'm telling you, Libre is Mr. Popularity around here. I literally told him that before the show started. He doesn't believe me. Like, I'm telling you, there's going to be a day where me and Libre are going to be walking down the street and more people are going to come and asking for his autograph, and they're going to think that I'm his bodyguard.
Hey, you're hired.
And then Paul Schaefer also saying, what's happening?
What's happening? Vato Loco, let's go.
Long Duck Denver Bronco. Your primo, Juan Marquez, he say, what's good?
What's happening, primo?
He also asks, how's my fellow Broncos fanatics feeling about the JK signing? I personally like the veteran move. We're going to get to that in just a second. We're just going to keep going through with the rest of these. D-Rock saying, hey, Don and Libre.
What's happening, D-Rock?
Thank you so much for being here with us. And Paul Schaefer saying, got to pay those bills.
Yes, sir.
Truer words have never been spoken, Libre. But going back to Juan Marquez's point, basically I have to admit I have to eat crow, because last week and probably the week before I sat here and I told you guys that I thought the Broncos were going to go after Nick Chubb. Bronco Libre was feeling more JK Dobbins. So if you guys want to give him a round of applause, please feel free. You know, Bronco Libre being like right once in a blue moon.
So I just want to go back to our previous shows prior to the draft, prior to the free agency happening. Go back to those episodes, talk about the stuff that we were talking about, who we're going to come up and pick up during the free agency, who we're going to pick up during the draft. See how many times I was correct, because I think if you guys want to go back out there and actually fact check it, Don's going to owe me some tacos. So I feel like we need to do some fact checks on those, and because I'm hungry for some tacos right now.
At this point, I might as well just hire like the local taco truck and just have them parked outside for the entire day. Or until he runs out of food, whichever one happens first.
Well, dang, he's going to be done by 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. D-Rock saying, JK Dobbins said, I played in the playoffs every year he played. He said he came to Denver because he wants a ring. Now, I will say the only statement I heard from JK Dobbins, and I didn't read the whole thing because I unfortunately clicked you know how when you're on Facebook and you read something and then when it refreshes, it goes away, like it just refreshes.
Yeah.
Like it is so annoying. But I read the first sentence before I misclicked, and it said basically JK Dobbins signing and coming to Denver was quote unquote a no-brainer. So I do believe that he actually means that. And it's not the first time that we've had another running back from a division rival come to Denver. We've had it with Melvin Gordon. We've had it with Jamal Charles. And the only issue is when those guys came over, those guys were turnover machines. You know, both Charles and Melvin Gordon. So that's my only worry going forward. I know J.K. Dobbins isn't a turnover machine like Melvin Gordon was and Charles. So the only other thing that I could probably say, and I would have said the same thing if they would have signed Chubb, is basically just if he can stay healthy. You know, now the thing to worry about in the Broncos backfield, Libre, is the rotation. Because now it's going to be harder for those guys because now we have a crowded running back room. And I think that guys like Estime and McLaughlin and Beatty, those guys are going to need to put on one hell of a show in preseason because those cuts are going to come after week 3. And unfortunately, we can't keep anybody. And I think some sacrifices are going to have to be made.
You know what? Like, I feel like you have, like you're saying, you have those concerns. I don't have those concerns. Adding Melvin Gordon to this running back room only helps this team 100% more itself because we haven't had that type of running back room in such a long time. By adding him, like, yes, I understand by what I think when you talk about hurts the team or hurts these guys, the only thing is going to be the difference between how many touches they're going to have. And I'm okay running a 1-2 punch running back system with RJ Harvey and JK Dobbins. I'm perfect and happy with that itself. Something I saw earlier this week prior to us signing Dobbins, I think it was Monday, right before he came back, and all the speculations yesterday were coming that we're signing him, that they put this thing up saying that since 2023, the number of a player that had 100 yards or more in a game that are on the left, and then a team that didn't have a rushing runner that had over 100 yards on the right. And of course, all 31 teams were on the left, and the Broncos were the only team on the right that didn't have an actual 100-yard rusher. I'm saying the same thing this year, for this year as well. We may not have another 100-yard rusher this year as well, but I'm okay with that because now it's not solely with one runner anymore. We now have 2 people that are going to be able to take the load for this team, and that we're going to actually be more dangerous with these guys because now it's like, who are we going to go and stop? Like, yeah, one might have 80 yards and the other one might have 90 yards. So they may not have a 100 each or whatever, but we're still going to be able to run the ball this year with these two. And it's just going to be able to open this offense up so much more for Bo Nix, which is what we need for him to be that next level quarterback in this league.
We have a name that I don't believe we've seen here on the show, Libre. God's Team. It's either God's Team or God's Team. Thank you so much. Mahai salute to you, my friend, even though it sounds like you're not a Broncos fan. But he says, hope y'all win the division for sure. But as a Bears fan, I'm just saying, y'all know damn well Chicago clearly won the offseason through and through. Best of luck this season. So I don't know if he's actually serious about that statement. I will say that I totally do not agree. I don't believe that the Bears won the offseason. They made some good picks or some good signings, I should say. They had a much better draft, I say, than they did the signing, because the only like high tier signing that they did was they got Joe Thuney. So they did the Broncos a favor because they took away one of Patrick Mahomes' better offensive linemen. So now, so now he's got a rookie blocking his I don't know if it's his blind side or his front side. So that's a big favor for us, and I wish Joe Thuney all the same. God's Team. I don't know if you know, but I'm here. I live in Chicago, or in the Chicagoland area, I should say. So I've heard all the same things you've heard, and I've seen all the same things you've seen. People are literally just down the line. Some people are Caleb Williams fans. If you go back a couple episodes, when I had my best friend on here who was talking about the Bears, who still feels that Justin Fields wasn't given enough time and prep and weapons to make a career or an honest name for himself, and he just got shipped out at the first chance they get. Me personally, I do not like the Bears GM. Okay, I think Poles is an idiot. He's done a lot of stupid things, and I'm not even a Bears fan. I'm just outside looking in. So I know that a lot of Bears fans were complaining about the previous GM, and then this guy came in and he seems to have done worse than the previous one. So, but basically the title of today's show, for those of you that aren't able to physically see, is basically we asked the question, have the Broncos won the offseason? So with the acquisition of JK Dobbins, we've also signed Hufanga at safety. We also signed Dre Greenlaw. And now we got, as I mentioned, JK Dobbins. Our defense got better. Our running room got better with Javonte Williams gone. So I want to say that the Broncos definitely won their offseason. Now, is it the best out of the entire NFL? That's an argument we can sit here and talk about all day, and we definitely can. But before I turn it over to Libre, I want to say that the Broncos definitely did, because they didn't sit on their hands like some other teams. They didn't wait until like all the best players were left and they just started kind of picking at scraps. The Broncos front office knew what needed to be done, because what happened at Buffalo cannot happen again going forward, Libre.
No, I agree with you 100%. And that's why with the additions that we did during this offseason, and I actually sent you a video, I think, of somebody ranking the offseason additions that the NFL had, and they ranked each team, and the guys actually ranked the Broncos as the team winning the offseason with the additions, the acquisitions, and all that. Just like how you mentioned with Greenlaw, with Hufanga, and this is right prior, and I think I sent this to you on Monday too. So this was like right before JK's signing. Just now adding JK to this running back room only adds to the fire of this team already being that much better, for already winning it. Just going in there and having that veteran leadership that JK Dobbins has, that he's going to be able to give RJ Harvey, going out there and providing to these other guys like Aldrick Estime and whatnot. I don't know if people saw the video yesterday from the first day of, or it might have been right before camp started, but Garrett Bowles had an interview, and he was talking about RJ Harvey. And he goes, man, you see this guy play, and it's like you don't even think that he's an actual rookie. Like you don't realize that, like you think that he should be a rookie, but when he's out there and he's out there practicing and playing right now, you don't see a rookie out there. So hearing that from your veteran offensive lineman, to hear that from him, knowing that he's going to be blocking for him this upcoming season, you're saying, man, look how good he is already. Like that just puts more excitement for me because I'm an offensive lineman. And when I was playing the position, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to run the ball. That's what you make, you are more satisfied as being as a run blocker than you are as a pass blocker, because you know that you created that hole for that running back to get out there. So just hearing all of that from Bowles and all that, I'm super excited for this upcoming season. I was talking to one of my coworkers, man. It's just like the excitement. We didn't want, like, we were trying to calm ourselves down, especially with the Dobbins signing, because we're like, man, we're kind of the same way when Russ was here, but we're trying to keep it kind of low key because of what we went through with Russ and whatnot, with the excitement of having him come in. I said, you know what, I think this is different. I go, it's a different team. We have a coach that's actually here playing and here that knows what he's doing. Before we didn't have that type of coach. Now we do. And so I'm just excited for it. And overall, and I do feel like what the Broncos have done is that they've gone all in. And I feel like the topic of the Today Show is we did win this offseason.
I personally, going back and reading the statement that D-Rock quoted about saying Dobbins saying he wanted to come win a ring, I think that sentiment goes for every single one of those three acquisitions. If you go back and if you remember before Dre Greenlaw signed to Denver, San Francisco was literally trying to back up whatever money they could to keep Greenlaw in San Francisco. I don't know about Hufanga. I think they were kind of skeptical on him. Like, yes, he is a great player, but I think his injuries probably hurt his chances of getting a big contract with San Fran. So I don't believe that they were trying that hard to keep him. But Dre Greenlaw,
I can see that.
If Greenlaw wanted to make more money, he simply could have re-signed in San Francisco.
100%.
And I believe that would have made it harder for the 49ers to keep what's his name? The linebacker from the Niners, who they Federico. What's the name? I can't believe he's like the star. Fred Warner.
Warner, yeah.
So they backed up the truck. They paid him the money that they were going to give Greenlaw because I don't think they had the cap to pay both of those players after they literally just backed up the truck to pay Purdy. So, and seeing that the Niners are kind of in shambles right now, if I'm being honest with you, they're kind of right now. I would probably say that they're kind of like where Shanahan was when he first came to San Francisco, like the year after they tanked, and they got all those picks and they built that team. So that's where they kind of are right now. Like it didn't do them any favors that they were one of the worst injury-ridden teams last year. That wasn't named Detroit. So, but going back to my previous point, basically, if Greenlaw wanted the money, he easily could have milked the 49ers for all that they had, and he would have stayed there. But there's something that Greenlaw saw in that team that kind of gave him the idea that the Niners aren't necessarily a bad team, but they're literally just kind of stuck in a rut right now. They're not the best. They're not the worst. They're just stuck in the middle right now. And me personally, I don't think it was the greatest idea to pay Brock Purdy all that money, because when you're stuck, I'm not saying Brock Purdy's the worst, but he's no Tom Brady or Peyton Manning-esque like player either. So now the Niners are kind of stuck in a position where Purdy has to excel with what he has, because the Niners are going to have to try to rebuild or do anything improvements through the draft, because they're not going to be able to make any big splash signings going forward in the next couple of free agencies, I would say, unless they have people restructure contracts or they trade players and the receiving teams take up a percentage of it. Like if they move some money around, but at this point, and then not to mention they have to contend with the Rams, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks. The Seahawks, I'm not all that worried about in terms of being a threat to their division. But I just basically think that Greenlaw made the right choice. He came to Denver. He didn't break the bank coming to Denver. He left money for the Broncos to kind of maneuver and spread, because he knew that the Broncos weren't exactly, big cap space holders either, at least not yet. As everybody knows, Russell Wilson is still on the books with Denver for one more year. And then next year, it's all hands out on deck. So that's why I believe the Broncos won the offseason in terms of, what they did and not breaking the bank. I have read other analysts, Libre, who feel that the Broncos did not win the offseason. I saw one of them basically give the Broncos a D, just for the simple fact that they signed Dre Greenlaw, who's injury prone, quote unquote, and same thing for Hufanga, injury prone. And that's why supposedly the Niners didn't do all their best and weren't all that concerned with them leaving the team. And I totally disagree, because the Niners are going to need all the help they can get. And as good of a player Fred Warner is, he's literally going to have to be playing either with rookies or whoever the Niners get after week 3 of preseason. So I don't believe it's like the best 49er defense that was there when Shanahan started turning that team around.
So going with the 49ers, like they're in that little, like the middle part of the teams in the league. So then they're in that type of rut where they're not that great, but they're not that bad. They're trying to make some movements on the team itself. But again, they're not trying to do what they call a complete rebuild of the team, because they feel like they can still do something with the guys that they have, or try to add to what they can possibly do. Again, the Broncos were in that rut for a long time as well, where we weren't that bad, but we weren't that good. We're just in the middle of the route. We're not calling it as a full rebuild. But what we were able to do, especially even adding these guys, like how you're talking about the guy that giving us a D grade. What was the grades that he gave the other teams? Did he give these T's guys an A? Who did he give an A to? Like, what is his? I like to know what his maybe his loyalty towards is. Even though if he might be a reporter and shouldn't have any loyalties, they have some bias to certain teams or whatnot. So what was his grade to other teams? That'd just be interesting for me to see those. And then I can at least say, you know what, he has the East Coast bias, the West Coast bias. And because we're a small town, middle market team, that he's not going to be giving the Broncos enough love, like a lot of the national media does. Which with this year, and of course I've heard it already this year as well, is I love that they don't want to give us the amount of credit, or there's some people that don't want to give us that type of credit. Let us show you on the field, because by the end of the season, those are the same people that are going to say, where did the Denver Broncos come from? They came out of nowhere. And we're right here now talking about what they're doing, because we see it. We're looking at it every day and whatnot, and we see this team right now as being one of the best teams out there. On paper right now, and we said it for weeks already, months already, that the Broncos are the best team on defense right now on paper. They just need to go out there and show up. And I feel like that's going to be it. I can't wait for it. I'm super excited. Just to see what this team is going to be able to do. And just seeing some of the interviews right after practice out of OTAs today has me just even more excited about this team with some of the information that's come out. So I don't know what you've heard, but somebody had asked Sean Payton about Pat Bryant. Did you see anything like that?
I didn't, unfortunately.
Okay.
What happened?
So right after practice today, they went in, and one of the reporters said, "Hey, what's going on with Pat Bryant? How is he doing that?" And he just had this smirk on his face, like, "Oh, we're gonna have big," like, that type of smirk is like, "Man, we have some big plans for this kid for this upcoming year." It's just that little smirk smile, just like how happy he was. Like, he didn't go much into detail, but just seeing that little smirk is like, oh my God, like, it's just that, like, it's just those little things that if you're not paying attention to it, you would miss it. But me seeing that, and I actually saw somebody else on TikTok on my way home posted about it, and I was like, oh, I saw the same thing. So I know that some people did see it. So it looks like he's doing so much better than anybody else, I guess, would expect him to do. So Pat Bryant, like, like, again, we don't have a privy to a lot of this stuff because they have people in their scouting department. That's all that they do. They're scouting all of these players and so forth. A lot of us, like the fans, unless you're actually in there just deep down into this, you're not going to know a lot of these players. But just being able to see that, seeing him being able to do the practices and so forth, the route running that he has, this is going to be an exciting year. And I think, again, and I've said this before, this is going to be Bo Nix's best year. Like, you thought he had a great year last year. Year 2 is going to be even better, especially with Sean Payton and the way that I feel like he's handled Bo, like started him off slow and let him progress and see him get better and better throughout the year. This upcoming year with the weapons that he has now, and then also with Evan Ingram, like the assistant head coach Rizzy was saying today, he goes, man, Evan Ingram's a lot faster than what we thought, which is something phenomenal. I can't wait for it. So that's just the excitement for the team right now.
Shai Vargas, I believe, has a question for you, Libre. Did you hear about the Broncos' new stadium?
As a matter of fact, yes. So when the Walton Penner Group took over, and actually bought the team, they sent an email out to all Bronco season ticket holders about a survey. And again, it's just a survey about, would you like a stadium? Would you like a dome? Would you, how far would you travel what's your current travel to the stadium now? How far would you travel? Just all those basic questions. So today, it was reported that the Walton Group had purchased about 58 acres of land close to where the current stadium is at. It's an old rail yard that they purchased, which is literally maybe a mile to 2 miles away from where the current stadium is at. I sent the photo to Adon because Vic Lombardi has actually posted it on X earlier today. And the location of it is going to be awesome. It's also going to be close to the new the female soccer stadium as well. So it's going to be like, if that's the actual location where the stadium is going to be at, it's a win-win for everyone because it's still centrally in downtown Denver. It's going to be a perfect location. They're going to do a complete makeover in that area, which really it needs it anyways, from what it looks like, because I think that rail yard is just somewhat abandoned, but it's going to be phenomenal. My one thing is I want to have it without a dome. That's one, first and foremost, is having it without a dome. If we can do that, keep the element, keep the here as in Denver, Mile High, even though we get maybe 1 or 2 games every 2 to 3 years with snow and whatnot, or a late game that has a snow game. But typically all of our games here at home is pretty nice weathered and whatnot. But it's the only reason why they'll get a dome here or a retractable roof or whatever the case may be is because they're wanting to attract a Super Bowl. And if they are going to put it at that location, it's actually a good spot because it's right there by downtown. They're going to be probably building like hotels or housing or whatnot in that area. So it's going to be bringing lots of people to accommodate lots of people in the area to have the fans and people visiting to come out, and it's just going to be exciting. I can't wait for it. It's going to be fun.
I think the question that everybody here wants is probably thinking that you didn't answer, Libre, is it going to be close to the light rail?
So right now, no. It's not, in that area is not close to a light rail, but that doesn't mean that they wouldn't be able to create it itself. Like that's one thing that was brought up as well with the DNVR podcast that was live earlier today, talking about the bus, the transit, and do that bike path or whatever. that's something that can be built within when they go in there and build the stadium, and it can part of the infrastructure. They'll be able to set that up. I have no questions about it. Where it might just be like a little monorail that goes up to that area only, and then going back into downtown, or be having it link up to some of the different stops that are the main light rail stations in town.
Well, because as you know, they're building. They've already greenlit a new stadium for the Bears here
Yes.
in a suburb called Arlington Heights. It's not too far from me. It's about 25, maybe 30 minutes away. But I think that the biggest issue with Soldier Field right now is if you wanted to take public transportation, there's like they have like those accordion buses. They're like super huge, ready to go, which is all fine and everything. But the issue is that those buses, they don't go like under a bridge or anything. It feels like almost every single person at the end of the game that leaves Soldier Field walks across where those buses are parked. So those buses are literally just sitting there and they cannot move because there is a sea of people walking by. I saw it when I was down there last year, or when the Broncos were here last time. And the nearest for us, we call it the L, which is the elevated trains. They're a couple of miles, maybe like 4 miles away from the stadium, because you have to walk into downtown Chicago away from the lakefront to get to it. And rideshare, as an Uber driver myself, it is hell to pick up people because you're going through traffic and you're not the only rideshare person driving to pick up somebody. So you're literally telling your passengers to, kind of walk to you, and some of them don't want to do it. They'll literally just stand there and wait until you fight your way through, and then coming back it's like, nobody likes to sit in traffic, much less gridlock, which is what can happen sometimes depending on who or what is playing in Soldier Field. So I hope Arlington Heights has a plan for that, and they're ready to kind of deal with that, because that's coming their way. And if they're not ready for it, they can easily be overrun, and then they'll have all the issues that you'd figure would get fixed from Soldier Field going to a new stadium. But again, I agree with your statement about the dome. If they do put a dome up in either one of those stadiums, they are going to be vouching for to host the Super Bowl, which in essence, Libre, is good because it's good for the local economy, your hotels and your transportation and all that stuff. But the only thing that would probably suck is if the Broncos, let's say, hypothetically speaking, if they do get a dome stadium and the Broncos don't make a Super Bowl, they host one, and it's a division rival, and then the division rival happens to win.
Well, that's just like in Vegas. That's what happened in Vegas, So with KC
exactly, ask any Raiders fan. So that's the risk you run. But I mean, I guess there's no risk is without its reward, or however that saying goes.
Yeah, no, it was a high risk, low risk, high reward, or whatever. But that going back to like how you're talking about in Chicago, I did go to a game in Chicago, and I did take the light rail or the rail there. And it is a walk. It's not like it's pretty close. Like at least if you take the light rail from to the Broncos stadium, like you're going to have about a 10-minute walk from the stadium, just because you have to do all this windy, curvy thing just to get to there. But, you get there within 10 minutes, which is an easy walk. It's not that bad. But I did for when we were there in Chicago, when me and my buddy were there, we did have to walk like a good 1.5 miles or something, I think, to the nearest one that drops you off close by. And then after the game, what was nice is that because we did a day trip, we flew in that Sunday morning, and then we flew out the very last flight of the day. So we just stayed there by the stadium, went to a bar close by, and just had a couple more beers after the game there at the bar, but waited before we had to jump on the plane and go to Midway, because we actually went down to out that way. So, but yeah, it is crazy the way that the system there is currently set up, and it's been like that for the longest time as well. But I'm sure that they probably have already something in plan there that's already probably been brought up, especially with with getting to the stadium, getting people in and out. And I'm sure that's part of the plan to have some type of transit, some type of something to get people in and out of there quick.
I know it's technically not the overtime part of the show yet, but I just saw this. It's Paul Schaefer's like, is it wrong to listen to your pod through the grocery store out loud?
Not at all, Paul Schaefer. I love that you're doing that. And make sure that you get the carne asada so we can have some tacos.
You know what this reminded me of? After the Panthers game last year, when I was walking back to my car with my nephew, I turned on the post-game show with Johnny Baki and the boys, and I was just walking, and I had the pod and I had my phone up full blast, and I'm just walking past all these Bronco fans, and they were all just kind of like looking, and I'm like, yeah, post-game show, follow us, Orange and Blue Network. Yeah, post-game show, follow us, MHRT Network.
Right?
You know, it's free publicity. And then there was there's like an apartment building like right by the parking lot, and there was just like this one lady just sitting on her balcony just staring at us, and I'm like, Orange and Blue Network post-game show, follow us. She just waved at me.
That's funny.
So it's like, as long as you're not annoying anybody, Paul, I guess it's okay, you know. But who can say no to free publicity?
Right.
I forgot to ask Johnny if the counts went up by the time I made it back to my car. But I know we're getting a little bit off topic here, folks, but that's just what we do. See, that's the beautiful thing about Broncos Talk, is that, you know, we kind of go all over the place, kind of like Pong. You know, and
I love
like
it.
I said, and it's not even the overtime part of the show yet. But basically, yeah, we do believe, at least I want to say Libre does, that the Broncos did win the offseason. They made the necessary moves without breaking the bank, which is really hard to do in free agency, because every player you get, Libre, you're going to have to overpay to get them. You know, you could make an argument and say that the contracts that both Hufanga and Greenlaw were maybe a little bit too rich, with the risk going in with it, but you had to do something to get them to come here. Otherwise, they would have stayed with the respective teams. Maybe they could have worked out a new deal with them and, again, made more money. But there's something that those guys saw here in Denver that made them say, we want to play here, because the Broncos have something special going. All right. And
well, just like what Paul Schaefer just said in the comments, no risk, no reward.
Yeah.
Like that's a thing, is you have to take a risk, and that's what free agency is. You're taking a risk on these guys that are coming in. If they're coming in healthy, if they came in where they had a season with the former team that they were hurt and that's why they're no longer there, absolutely. You have to take a risk on people, because if you don't take a risk, there's no reward. Because look at what happens if this is now we're coming into here and these guys come out to be Pro Bowlers this upcoming year. Guess what the Broncos did? They took a risk. They paid these guys, and guess what? They were rewarded. And hopefully that we'll be hosting a Super Bowl trophy at the end of the year because of that.
You know, the example that I keep telling everybody, Libre, is the current champion, Philadelphia Eagles. A year ago, they were the laughing stock of the NFL. They made it into the wild card, and they got literally embarrassed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
That play of James Bradbury literally not being able to tackle, who was it? I think Godwin, was just like, I mean, the Eagles were the laughing stock of the NFL. And it was already hard enough because a lot of people were saying that 90% of the teams that make it to the wild card had no business being there, and the Eagles were just making their case. So the fact that the Eagles went from being bounced and embarrassed in the wild card round to winning the Super Bowl the following year, and winning the Super Bowl in the fashion that they did with that defense, and all they did was switch their defensive coordinator. That's all they did. They got a couple of they changed their defense a little bit. You know, they got Cooper DeJean and Zach Bond. two players who were literally kind of under the radar, and now they're popular megastars. They're Super Bowl champions. So just making minute changes made waves around the NFL. Okay, so the Eagles went from chumps to champs in one season. So there's no reason, or there's no way you can't tell me that these Broncos cannot do the exact same thing. And yes, I know they got to contend with the Chiefs and the Raiders and the Chargers and everybody who beat them last year. Competition is not going to be easier for the Broncos, and it shouldn't be, because I don't want these guys to simply win on easy schedules. I know that they do the whole strength of schedule thing every year, and I kind of wish that they really didn't sometimes, because then it kind of takes away from the narrative of like, oh, that team's only good because they're only playing crappy teams. It's one thing if you play like one crappy team, like once a month, but when it's like consistent, then it's kind of like, it kind of makes it look like you're playing Madden on easy mode.
You're right on that, though. But the thing is, it's like they're going based off of last year's schedule, and that's what they did the previous year. You can't go do that going into the season, into the new year itself, because the team is completely different with all the new additions, the people that have left, people retired, whatever the case may be. So you can't do that. I know they have to do that to get some type of content out there or whatnot, but it's just part of that conversation. Is like, oh yeah, let's do that, because you see that at the end of the year as well. They have, all right, let's see who has the hardest remaining schedule with the teams that are out there, and just what Paul Schaefer's right there. You have to do in the draft in the trenches as well, part of that risk and reward. And I feel like the Broncos did such a great job in this year's draft, like Barron, RJ Harvey. These guys, Pat Bryant, these guys are going to be those key players that are going to be starting for us. Like, there's some of those guys are going to be starting for us on this defense. And that is what the excitement for this team is right now. Just like I was talking to my coworker today, man, it's like, how can you not talk about these Broncos and be so excited, especially watching OTAs and watching these guys, the coaches and so forth, talk about these players. It just makes you excited for it. I'm super excited. Can't wait for it.
I need everybody who looked down on the Broncos first round pick. I need all those people to keep that same energy, because I want to see them all in October when the Broncos are, dare I say, 4-0, or the Broncos defense is clicking. And it's giving shades of a very dominant defense that we saw literally 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because literally ever since that first draft pick came out, like, the battle line was drawn in Broncos country. People that were in favor of it, and then people that were against it. Just because the Broncos didn't get Loveland and the Bears got a higher pick, because the Broncos didn't trade up to go get a player like Loveland or whoever else they thought was
Tyler Warren.
Were more deserving. And I get it. Those are players that I wanted too. However, the risk to Sean Payton and the management's eyes was not worth the reward. So going forward, this is the team that you guys are going to be cheering for. And it wasn't something that, at least to me anyway, that wasn't something that wasn't a position of need, because if it would have been Ashton Genty, if he would have fell that low, people would have lost their mind. Okay. Because running back is a position that we needed. If it would have been a quarterback like the Falcons did last year with Michael Penix, then yeah, I can understand people's frustrations. And believe me when I tell you, Falcons fans will probably saying that they're super relieved right now with that selection, because they thought that Cousins was going to bring them a trophy, just like we thought Russell Wilson was going to bring us a trophy. And
the reaction during the draft, which I think was the whole NFL as well, because I was in shocked when they selected Penix after they had just signed Cousins to a 4-year deal. It's like, what are you doing? Number one pick, your number one pick high up there, and you're getting another quarterback that you just signed Cousins. I was like, what is this team doing? It was ridiculous. But look what happened. They knew something else was going on, but why would you sign him to that such of a big deal as well? But look at what happened. There was that insurance policy that they put in for themselves, and now Penix is going to be their starter going forward.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I was talking to somebody who was a Falcons fan who, well, they sent me a message. They were like, hey, sorry for giving you guys so much smack during the whole Russell Wilson thing, because we're literally going through the same thing right now. And I'm like, well, yeah, you guys have a really hard decision. Do you bench Kirk Cousins and just watch millions of dollars ride the bench? Do you trade Kirk Cousins and hope I don't think any other team's going to want to pick any part of that contract.
The only way that will happen is if a team loses a quarterback and there's nobody else out there and they need to do something. That's the only way something will happen. Yeah,
probably. But the last quarterback hungry team already signed a quarterback. So
yeah,
it would have to be with their cap space, of course. But then again, it's kind of like that would put the Falcons in a really tough spot, because if Michael Penix goes down, who's your backup? At least Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins isn't bad, but he's not playing anywhere near the money that he's being paid to play and anywhere near what he was doing when he was in Minnesota. Again, Falcons forgot that Kirk Cousins did not come to Atlanta with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, all those weapons. That's why I believe Sam Darnold and the Seahawks are going to find that out themselves too, because that's just to give you guys a better example. Imagine Peyton Manning playing anywhere else but Denver. No Demaryius Thomas, no Emmanuel Sanders, no Jacob Tamme, no Owen Daniels, nothing. None of those guys. Can Peyton Manning go out and set the record for most touchdowns? Have a 2013 like season? No Wes Welker either. I don't think so.
I don't think so as well. There's no way.
There's no way. That's why he didn't sign with Tennessee.
Yeah, there's no way that could have happened. You have to remember that he came here as well because he knew about the weapons. He had the weapons here. And Elway didn't have to do much because Peyton wanted to come here. That's why he came over here. He did the visit. I actually remember that day when he came in because I was working close to Centennial Airport down south, and all we saw the whole time was these helicopters coming in. What was nice is my building where I was at had a clear view of Centennial Airport, and you saw the black SUVs. You could see that one of them had Peyton Manning and just had a convoy of cops and all that doing a police escort from the airport there in Centennial to Dove Valley, which is maybe a 5-minute drive, if that. So being able to see that, you had the helicopters were like, what the heck's going on? And then the news coming out that Peyton Manning was coming into town was we're all looking. And I was like, yep, Peyton's there. You could see him actually. Well, not actually see him, but you could tell that he was in one of the cars. But yeah, it was exciting. It was all right, we're going to sign him. We're going to do that. But again, during that time as well, that was that time where we didn't know what was going to happen. It was he's coming from that terrible injury. What is he going to be able to do? And with Jim Irsay, he's like, all right, we don't need your services no more because we think you're broken and you can't do nothing. And guess what he did? Just have one of the best seasons ever from a quarterback in NFL history.
Man, I mean, when you're right, Libre, you're right.
And that's not often.
Yeah, you're right, and that's not often. But make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, the Broncos are building something special in Denver. And it's kind of like, if you want a comparison, it's kind of like what the Chiefs were doing after they drafted Patrick Mahomes. Now, I'm not saying that any of the players they drafted are going to be the next big thing, because finding that type of needle in the haystack, a generational talent, if you will, is not the easiest thing for any team to do. But basically, you know, the Chiefs bringing in Andy Reid, who literally had Michael Vick to work with and Donovan McNabb and all those great Eagles players, and not being able to do anything with those type of guys. But he comes to Kansas City, and with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and all those other Chiefs players, and all of a sudden, you know, the Chiefs start running rampant and doing all the stuff that we hate as Broncos fans, you know. So that just goes to show you how important the offseason is. You know, we as fans, we kind of like don't pay attention to it that much because we're all busy doing stuff in the summer and working in some cases, and, you know, just kind of watching the calendar and the time click by because we're waiting for that beautiful Sunday Night Football theme to hit. So we don't get to see a lot of the stuff that's not being live streamed, or, you know, unless you have credentials to go to Dove Valley and see the workouts in person. That's why I follow Cody Rourke, because Cody Rourke, I feel, is like one helmet short of actually being out there on the game of play training with the players, you know. So I trust his insight and input when he reports back to us on social media. So, but we also kind of have to be careful, Libre, just for the simple fact that Broncos media specifically is really good at sometimes overhyping certain issues or covering up certain issues. I'm pretty sure I talked about this on the show before when Case Keenum came to Denver, and, you know, he was already called the gunslinger, and, you know, he's going to be the next, the answer to not having Peyton Manning, and the Broncos were so, and we fell for it. I fell for it anyway. And then Case Keenum went on to have like such a mediocre season. It wasn't anywhere near what the Broncos media portrayed it to be, or what we saw in those training camp videos and all that. So we have to take everything we see with a grain of salt. You know, and as Paul Schaefer, Russ equals Case. Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's case was even worse because Russell Wilson didn't even play in the preseason. And it wasn't so much his fault, because I'm pretty sure that was Nathaniel Hackett's idiotic coaching tactics. And that's why the Broncos started off all super rusty in Seattle that week 1. But we don't have to worry about any of that stuff anymore, because now we have Sean Payton. And I believe Sean Payton is not going to let his starters rest the entirety of the preseason, because you have to let the rookies know how it feels to get hit in the NFL, because it is not like college. You have to get them, the rookies, to get settled in, to know that the rules in the NFL are different. We said this last week, I believe, that the NFL is quicker, it hits harder, it's more, I don't know if chaotic is the right word, but professional, definitely. And wins and losses go a long way. It's not like college. You know, I know college, they're all, you know, they have their divisions, and, you know, you pretty much know, if you're into college, you know which teams are really good and which teams are not so good, you know?
Yeah.
But here, luck can change in the flip of a coin. You know, you can start off hot and then go cold and miss out the playoffs, or you can go 0-3, 0-4, as like the Bengals have been liking to do, and then all of a sudden be a game or two short away from the playoffs or making the playoffs. I mean, it is so unpredictable in the NFL. And it is literally insanity, but for some reason, we as football fans live for it, Libre.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I can't wait. Like, just in general, just this season, I'm just super excited. I just had one of my buddies who sent me a text that we're talking about how you're talking about the preseason and all that. The Broncos do open up training camp to open sessions where they'll have certain days that fans will be able to go and participate and view practices and whatnot. My buddy was asking me if those dates have been announced, and I just actually was just texting him saying, nope, not yet, but once it is available, I will definitely share, and I will be attending at least the first 1 or 2. It's just a tradition that I do. Have to be there first day, see the Broncos, because that's the most excitement. You know, that's when you know football is officially back, is when the fans are being able to be there and actually see the team in helmets and shoulder pads.
I couldn't agree more. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it is the end of regulation, which means that Libre and I are getting ready to go into some overtime. Now, for those of you that are newer part to this part of the episode or show, if you've never seen it before, this is basically where Libre and I kind of let our hair down and we talk about anything going on, whatever we feel like. It's not necessarily 100% football related. It can be. If we can find a way to bring it back to our Denver Broncos, we will, but no promises are to be made. Libre, what's on your mind today, brother?
My tacos. I'm hungry. That's what I want. One thing I do want to say first before everything is we're not going to see you guys until next Wednesday. This Sunday is Father's Day. Just want to wish out all the fathers that are out there. If you're a stepfather, father, whatever, happy Father's Day to you guys. That's one thing I want to say is enjoy the day, enjoy some good barbecue, and enjoy las chelas.
Agreed. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there in Broncos Country and listening to us within the sound of our voices. Unfortunately, I'm not a father, but I am a dog dad, even though I know that doesn't count.
That's a fur baby.
Yeah, it's a fur baby, and I've been taking care of that rugrat for the last 10, 11 years. So, but basically, I was telling Libre that if any of you guys follow me on social media, on Twitter, today my nephew graduated from middle school and he's going to high school. I couldn't be prouder of him. He's a smart student, A's. He's going to one of the better schools in Chicagoland. And while we were out celebrating and having a nice lunch, I started I kind of started reminiscing about when I was in his position. This was back in '98.
Dang, long time ago.
Yeah, long time ago when I was a youngin' and better looking. I remember I applied to all these high schools, and my grades were not good. I was C's and D's and maybe a couple F's, and the better schools rejected me the next day. And even the school that my nephew's going to, which our junior high didn't have its own school yet, so we kind of we were in that high school, but we were in the southern wing. So the southern wing was all for 7th and 8th graders, and the rest of the school was for high schoolers. So and every single school I applied to, I didn't get into because they all they had to you had to have a certain academic score and GPA and all that mess, and I couldn't. So after that, I was I thought I was going to have to drop out and go straight to work like most Mexicans. I didn't know that there was you had to go to your local alternative school, which was just the one that was in my neighborhood. So I was okay. And I went there and I goofed off for a good part of the band. 3 years by the time I decided to get my act together. I didn't graduate with my class of 2003. I had to stay an extra year in high school to make up for all the credit and all the classes I didn't take. So I was sitting there with a bunch of freshmen and with my sister who literally started high school that same year. So it's kind of embarrassing, but hey, I deserved every bit of it for not, taking my grades seriously, hanging out with the wrong people, doing things that I wasn't supposed to do. But the important thing is that I did graduate. Math was probably the hardest subject because I can't do math to save my life. And to this day, I think my algebra teacher just gave me a passing grade just so he wouldn't have to see me again. So, but if there's any graduates out there, congratulations to all you guys. I know June is definitely the graduates month, but yeah, Libre, it is not easy. Especially in today's age where cell phones and tablets are a thing. Thankfully, on my way out of high school, that's when cell phones were starting to kind of take off. Thank God.
So one thing for me personally, I was focused I was in wrestling and football, so I had my focus in sports, and especially here in Colorado, within the school districts, you have to have good grades in order to participate into the sports. Because if you have any failing grades, you weren't able to participate at all. So that's one thing that when you're there, like especially if you're playing sports and you want to continue playing because that's your love, what you're wanting to do as a kid, you're going to do whatever you need to do in class. Yeah, I didn't have A's and B's. Like I was there with C's and D's and all that as well. But I was there. I had the eligibility to be able to still play. So whatever I had to do to be able to be on the field or on the wrestling mat, I did it. But I still commend you that you still completed it, even though you had to spend that little extra time in summer school or that extra year. But you got it done. That's all that matters. And that's what I just have to say as well to all these kids as well that are currently in high school as well. If you're out there, if you're struggling, please go and get that extra credit. They have resources there for all your schools to help you get there because they want to see you succeed as well. I know back in the day, because you see some of these other, like these movies and whatnot, that they're just pushing people through just to get them through. Nowadays, I think they do want to see kids succeed because that's what they want to do. But just keep on working on it. You're going to be there. But I want to talk about, like, in your school, like you said, you had to apply to like these different schools. Were these like private schools or were they like?
No, they were all public schools.
All
My
public
parents
schools?
couldn't afford private school.
But so like you had to apply for these schools, because I know like with here in like in the Denver area or even the surrounding school districts, is like as long as you could get a transportation there, like they normally will accept you. So that's kind of weird, because like I know a lot of the schools like tend to recruit some kids to play sports or whatnot. But as long as you can get to the school or whatnot, that's all that they care about. Especially here in Colorado, I don't know if it's because at one point you did have to live in the district in order to go to a certain school. Then they lifted that.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can. I'm going to put on the camera if you can see. This is my high school ring. I know it's kind of hard to focus, but it's got the name of the school. On the side is the goat, which is because I'm a Capricorn. I believe that's the month. And then on the other side is it was the Mexican flag, but the green and the red fell off, but the águila still on there. So I wear it. It's like this is the only piece of jewelry I own and wear. I don't own chains. I don't own anything else. That's the only thing close to jewelry that I wear. But that is quite possibly one of my most prized possessions, just for the simple fact that I failed at a lot of things in life. But one of those things, like that's probably like the one thing that if you live in a Mexican household like I do, like my dad wanted me to quit school because he's like, well, if you couldn't do it for 4 years, what's one more year? It's kind of like drop out and go to work. And, and I didn't want to do that. I kind of felt like I know I can do this. I'm smart enough. I just had to apply myself. And I just cut off all the people that, if you're not going to help lift me up, then, we're just going to go our separate ways. And that's how I did it. I joined.
Don't want to be you.
Yeah. I joined all these after school programs to keep me occupied so I wouldn't be hanging out on the streets with my friends. And, I signed up. I was in the all school play for the Wizard of Oz. I was the wizard.
That's right. You had to be behind the curtain.
Yeah. And I was one of the backstage managers, so I was in charge of all that stuff. So, rehearsing for that. But yeah, kind of like it says on my shirt here, never give up.
But we can't see you.
You can't see.
We can't see you because you're behind the curtain.
Before John Cena was John Cena.
Exactly.
Oh, and this is what I was gonna. We got a comment here from 4X. I want to think that says, it says new to this channel, subscribed. Was just thinking the same thing. We won the offseason. # Denver Broncos for life.
Thank you so much for the
Mahai,
sub.
salute to you. Thank you so much for the
Yes.
subscription. It is definitely very well appreciated. I will say, make sure you turn on that little bell notification so you get live notices of every single time we go live, so you never miss a single episode of any of the things that we have to talk about. Doesn't matter if we're rambling on about it or not. The other thing I wanted to talk about, Libre, is tipping culture. Okay, because I'm starting to think that, you know, tipping. I'm pretty sure we've talked about it on the show before, but I talked about it in terms of from being an Uber driver myself. But it's kind of like, and it's been a raging issue lately. For example, like when, let's say if you go to Subway and like the person making your sandwich, or if you go to like a Starbucks or something, anything that doesn't require you to make it or somebody bring it to you or cater to you, and they spin the tablet around and ask you if you want a tip. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So in a scenario like that, if I'm paying cash and if I'm getting some change back or whatever, then I might throw $1 or $2 in the tip jar that they have there. But if it's on my credit card or my debit card or whatever, I guess it's just depending on how I'm feeling that day. But normally, I'll say 9 times out of 10, I'm saying no tip on those type of that service. But if you're going to sit down restaurant, you're going where there's somebody that's taking your order, bringing you drinks and all that, you know, minimum 18%. You know, we normally tip more than that, but that's just a minimum because they're serving you, they're bringing you the food. There are some restaurants that they do, like they have a runner that will bring you your food. So like, but but I feel like in those places though, they share the tips. So you're wanting to tip out and make sure that you are tipping them the 18 to 22%, however you want to do it, 25% itself. I don't know if you saw this or not, but earlier this week, there's a video this photo that's going viral right now that Bo Nix was somewhere out there and he wrote on there talking about he gave a $900 tip. He goes, "This isn't my money. This is God's money. This is he blessed us so that we could bless you." So just that, like if you have it, if you're able to do that, you know, you never know like what people are going through and whatnot. So if you have it, please always do more, especially for the service industry, because, you know, those guys are working their butts off. If they don't have 2 jobs, they have 3 jobs just trying to make it work out there. So, and again, his bill was only like $60 or something like that. So then he put a $900 tip on there for the server, which was like awesome to see.
Yeah, I will basically, and I don't know if I talked about this before, but basically, like I have a general idea whenever I go out to eat. And again, I'm with you on, if you're serving me at a table, then I'm basically critiquing everything that you do in terms of how long it takes you to come back and, you know, freshen my drink or ask if we need anything. Obviously, the common misconception is, especially, and I argue with my mom about this all the time, who feels that if the kitchen is delayed, that's on the server, you know. And I always have this conversation with my mom. It's not the server's fault. The server is more than likely hurrying the kitchen because they don't want their tables waiting. You know, because then the servers I tell them, like, you have to remember, we're not the only table that they're serving. If you're at a very busy restaurant, chances are that they're trying to serve more than one table at a time, and it can be frustrating. The other thing that I have seen is that sometimes I have been seeing that some servers favor, like, I don't know if it's their favorite customers or these other ones where I'm pretty sure they're probably big tippers, and it's usually 99.9% of the time it's just men, like older men, and it's just a guy sitting there at a table, and the waitresses will go over and just have like this long conversation with them, and then they'll come over and ask me if I need anything. I say no, and then they go back and just start having a conversation with them again. So, and then when I ask them about it, I feel like they're lying to me, and they're like, "Oh no, he comes every once in a while," and I'm like, well, that didn't sound like a conversation that you have with somebody once in a while. You know, that guy's asking you personal questions about your life, and you're literally answering. So I don't know if you guys were flirting or if you were flirting with him just to get him to convince him to get the like. It's none of my business, but unfortunately, that's just what my ears hear. You know.
So
So
you say that, like, I used to work at a Mongolian grill. Like, you know, they're in Chicago and Illinois. BD's Mongolian Grill. We had one out here in Denver, and I was a grill master there. And what was nice is that people were able to stand right there at the grill. We had a shelf right there for people to stand and watch while their food is being cooked. And let me tell you, like, and we got tips while we were cooking, because again, we're serving, we're putting on a show, we do that. I was flipping swords and whatnot, and you know, putting on a show. Especially, I cater to all the kids. But again, there's those times where you're out there and you see couples that have come up, and I like to play jokes on them, mess with them, do whatever. And yeah, you're doing whatever you can do to get that tip from them. There's times where I like, this is how I say, because there's 14 sections that were on the counter, and I always put a couple that would come up. There'll be 1 and 2, and I start putting the guy at number 1 and then the girl at number 2, and I was like, "Hey, you're number 1. You're number 1." But then I'll say, "Hey, you're number 2. You're even better than that." And they're like, "Why is that?" I go, "Because number 2, because you're the shit. That's why." And then people, like, they would eat that stuff up just because, you know, the interaction that you have with them. And then 9 times out of 10, the girl's going, "Hey, babe, tip them, give them some money. Babe, give them some money," you know? So, and that was like that was so much fun. I wish that it was still open here in Denver, because I loved working there because it was so much fun.
yeah, and Paul Schaefer makes a good point here. Exactly. Money talks. Old guy comes in every night, which is fine. I don't care what they do on their time, is their time. But there was one server who came to our table, and it was my whole family, and asked us, like, we wanted her to refresh our drinks. She said, okay. She goes two tables over, and she stops, and she has a 20-minute, I kid you not, because I timed it, 20-minute conversation with one customer. And then she goes to go get her drinks. No. And that to me rubbed me the wrong way. And I said, "Oh yeah, is he like VIP or something?" She's like, "No, why would you say that?" I'm like, "Because I'm literally looking at you, like telling you what's the delay. Like, everybody's drink here is literally empty, and it took you 20 minutes to go and get us drinks." And then she just apologized. And I'm like, okay, that's when I start deducting money off of my head. Just because that is not, you don't do that. You don't favor somebody else over the other. If she would have stopped and talked to him for like a few minutes, okay, hey, let me go get their drinks, I'll be right back. As long as nobody's waiting on you, do whatever the hell you want. I don't care. But when you do something like that, that's just disrespectful. And she's really lucky that I'm not one of those Karens that goes and it's like, hey, where's your manager? You know, because I don't want to get her in trouble, because I didn't think it was that serious. But again, I'm pretty sure that guy was definitely probably leaving some very good tips for her to sit there and laugh at all his terrible jokes and hear how his day was and all that stuff. Sometimes servers serve more of the role of a therapist than a server.
And that could be it, because you know they do tend to do that, especially with the regulars. So he could have been a regular, whatever the case may be. But I agree with you 100%. When I was managing the restaurant as well, there was times I did have to tell the server saying, "Hey, you got to go and take care of this. Go and do that." When I wasn't on the grill, so I know exactly how it is. It's like, but you have to have those managers that are out there watching it. So you could tell that place wasn't managing their servers properly. Because if she was just sitting there for 20 minutes, knowing that she had multiple tables at that time, then yeah, that's real poor service right there.
She didn't like Giants? Probably not. I don't know if you and Libra already knows what restaurant I go to, because I'm usually late every Friday.
Because of it?
Yeah, well, not every Friday, but every other Friday. But it's a restaurant that we go to. It's called Twin Peaks. It's the exact same thing as Hooters in that regard. I think that they have the best wings in town. That's just my personal opinion. And my dad loves the street corn salad. He has it every time. And like, I can crush about like 10 wings damn near on my own. So, and I always get the same look from everybody because I'm the biggest person that walks through there all the time. So, yeah, but then again, I get looks from people anywhere I go. Doesn't have to be at a restaurant or anything, which is fine because I'm used to it by now.
El giant, el gigante, ándale.
Yeah. Pretty much. But no, again, if you go out, make sure you tip your servers. It doesn't have to be something eccentric as $900 like Bo Nix did, but that's because Bo Nix makes a lot of money. But just don't be that person where you just don't leave anything, because those type of people piss me off too. And I'm not going to go into my Uber rant again because I feel
that's what I was just going to say. Make sure you tip your Ubers if they talk to you. If they don't talk to you, get them out. No, I'm just kidding.
If every person that I gave a ride to gave me a tip, even if it was just $1, I would meet my goal, my daily goal, so much quicker, and I could get home sooner instead of trying to pick up an extra trip here and there. And it is kind of weird when I do get like these random tips, like about a week or so later. I don't even remember what the ride was for, but it'd just be like, hey, somebody tipped you $10 because I took them to the airport, or I took them here or there. And it's like, I can say thanks, but I can't remember for the life of me who it was. Or where I was going. But I'm like, hey, thanks. Uber sends you a reminder like, hey, remember so-and-so? They gave you a ride a week or two ago. You still want to tip them? It's like, oh, yeah. But there have been some passengers that have told me like they literally just forget. Like they just don't read the email or the notification. They're like, oh, I'll do it later. But later never comes. So especially the ones at the airport, because people that are going to the airport, they're only trying to do one thing, and that's get past TSA and make it to their gate on time. So,
if you go to Midway, it's pretty quick.
Yeah, Midway is pretty quick. I've only flown out of O'Hare once. That was 2018, a couple years ago.
I think when I first flew in, when I went into Chicago, I think I flew into O'Hare, but then when I left through Midway.
Yeah, I'm gonna need you to get somebody to get like those golf carts for Denver International, because every time I fly to Denver, they always put me at the very edge of the freaking airport, and it's like 100-mile walk.
Well, that's why you get on those escalators on that running walkway. You have to get on there to walk back. Yeah, they have like it's almost like a what is it? The stairs, not the stairs, but the treadmills. They have those running and it's in all the concourses where you just jump on that and it makes you walk faster. And
your McDonald's in Denver International needs $1 menu, Libre. I should not have to spend $3-4 for just a soda.
And that's why it's in the Denver airport, and that's why you never order food there in the airport, because they upcharge everywhere, and it's at every airport.
Yeah, that's at every airport. Yeah. I remember the one in Vegas. The one in Vegas was just like that too, except there were slot machines everywhere.
Yeah,
at every corner there's a slot machine.
A lot of people have lost their flights, couldn't make their flights because they were on a slot machine.
Really?
Well, I'm sure that there is. I don't gamble in the airport, but yeah.
When I went to Vegas last year, literally the person in front of me went straight to the slot machine. Didn't even bother to go to baggage claim. He went right to the slot machine just outside the jetway and just sat down and started playing. And then a couple people were booing at me because I had my Broncos gear on, like, go Raiders, and I'm like, go Broncos, F you guys.
Yeah. That's when you say that I'm surprised that they didn't do their little grito, Raiders.
They did at the stadium and while we were walking out, but
that's when you right away, immediately right after they say the S part of it, that's when you go, suck. I do it all the time. Whenever I hear it, I always say, Loud and proud.
Yeah, the only regret I have, Libre, is I didn't buy. There was a store, I forget the name of the store, but it was in a mall, and it was going out of business, and like all their Bronco stuff was like on sale, and they had one of those cool like button retro jackets with the logos and and I really wanted to buy it, man, but it was like $150. So
yeah, that's a lot.
I'm like, man. And I looked at it and I told my nephew, I'm like, we'd have to sacrifice the rest of not being able to eat for the next 2 days.
Right.
So I could buy this. And I'm like, nah, I'm like, next time, man. Next time I come with a little bit more money.
So what I love about what the Broncos do, especially for season ticket holders, is that they give us a 20% discount at the team store. So not only is that covering part of the taxes, and then it's also covering part of the purchase itself. So it feels like you're getting a good deal when you do go and shop at the team store, because everything at the team store is super expensive anyway. But if there's something that you really want, that I really want, knowing that I can go in there and get a 20% discount is awesome.
I just remembered. I only bought one cup, but the one thing I did, I turned around and it was during Halloween. So I took a picture with this lady that was dressed up like the like Bucky.
Oh yeah.
I know I can't focus, but I'm pretty sure if you follow me on social media, you've seen it before. And that lady couldn't stop laughing. That's the only time because of our height difference.
That's funny.
I was just like, I'm sorry. Like, I saw you from like upstairs and I had to run down, take a picture with you because I love Buc-ee's.
That's hilarious.
And the fact that there's not a Buc-ee's in Colorado yet, at least I don't think so.
Yes, there is.
Oh, you guys have one now?
Yeah, it's been here for going on like that near the beginning of the year or at the end of last year, something like that. Like, yeah, it's been a while. We've had it for a minute now.
In the Denver area or in Colorado itself?
In Colorado, so it's up north, so northern Colorado, so near Johnstown, where the old trucking stop was at. Johnson's Corner, it's called. It's by like Loveland, Fort Collins area. If people are give like a good direction to it. So, but it's up north, and I heard that they're trying to build one, I think down in, I think the Springs area now. They're trying to do that now.
We need one in Chicago, man.
Well, like the Texas, like which is crazy is because the one that they built here in Colorado, up in Johnstown, is considered the biggest Buc-ee's ever built. And of course, Texas couldn't handle that. So they're building one in Texas right now that's bigger than this one that's here in Colorado, because everybody in Texas wants something bigger. That's what their claim to fame is. Like, everything here in Texas is bigger. So yeah, they literally, right after this one was built, they're like, oh, we're building another Buc-ee's, and it's going to be bigger than the one in Colorado, because Colorado's the biggest one out of all of the Buc-ee's right now.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for our segment of Overtime today. I would like to thank, I should say, Libre and I would like to thank all the people in our chat today. Shai Vargas, Paul Schaefer, the Bronco Libre's twin for some reason.
Hawaiian King right now on TikTok.
Who else? D-Rock, of course.
My
Forekis. Thank you so much for subscribing. We look forward to having you more often here on the show. Who else? Did I say Shai Vargas already? Maybe.
Yes, sir.
And your cousin, Juan Marquez, and God's team, who probably just came and left. But thank you so much for your comment. And, of course, to everybody watching us on TikTok, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Here. Just kind of close out the show, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to remind you to please subscribe, share, comment, and like, just like Forekis did here on the Orange and Blue Network. Make sure you hit that notification button so you never miss a single episode. Also, like to thank our sister station MHRT Network for having us on this channel as well. So please make sure you subscribe, share, comment, and like over on their channel as well. Lots of great content in between the two channels. And, of course, that's where you can find Broncos Talk every single Wednesday. For our audio listeners, please make sure 5-star reviews are greatly appreciated. Take a screenshot, send it to Libre and I. Our socials on Twitter. Our handles are there at the bottom. At a 6 for 10 Mexican is mine. Bronco Libre is Bronco Libre at Bronco Libre 5280. So shout out to our sponsor, which is Dubby. If you use the code NRWOB10 at checkout, you'll get 10% off on your order. Again, that's the code NRWOB10 to get your 10% off at checkout. Shout out to Dubby for being a sponsor here on all the shows on the networks, and to the guys over at Nothing Rhymes With for the hookup. Again, thanks to everybody watching us through Broncos World Order and everywhere on Facebook, Twitter, everywhere that this channel reaches out to. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be back on Friday for Viva Los Broncos. Again, for those that don't know, it is a Spanish-led podcast, so Libre and I will be only speaking in Spanish. So please make sure you tell your friends that speak Spanish or have a translator ready if you like to sit there and hopefully it can translate everything we say correctly.
Right? Poquito, poquito, suave, suavecito. Oh,
yeah.
I can't say. Actually, that's all I can say. I can't go anymore because.
With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, he's Bronco Libre. I'm Alan Diaz. This has been Broncos Talk on the Orange and Blue and MHRT Network. So with that, we say goodbye to you, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, go Broncos!
Love Broncos!
Woo!